Good morning and welcome to SAT Prep. Today I'm just going to pick and choose some of our questions from our first two quizzes. And if you wanted to log into the Google Meet, you can certainly ask me specifically which questions you want to go over. But I'm going to spend about 10 minutes or so going over some problems. We'll pick and choose. And don't forget that I'm going to post for you your test on this material on Friday. What that means, of course, is that on Friday it's also due, so don't delay. But you'll also have tomorrow if you want to ask me during the Google Meet any particular questions that you might have. So I believe tomorrow I'm not posting a video. What I'm going to do is host a Google Meet, and it'll be open to you to ask any questions you might have. If you don't have any questions and you feel good and you got good grades on both of those quizzes, then you're good to go. All right, I gave you back through email the most recent quiz, so you have that in front of you. And the other quiz you already had. So hopefully you can review from them and you can be prepared for the test. Let's pick and choose. Let's see, from the first quiz, let's just look at number one. It just asked you, if you open a savings account with $7,000, oh, by the way, there were two versions, so I'm just gonna read the version I have in my hand, which is version 2. You might have had version 1. It's just different numbers. So keep it in mind. But if we start with $7,000 and then we make additional deposits, the equation you should have in your mind is 7,000 plus, in this case, 25x, or W, because it was weeks. So 7,000 plus 25W is the equation for our savings account. It wants to know when we will exceed 1,950. The word exceed means have more than. So the symbol we'd want is greater than. On the quiz, which was version 2, that would have been 7,000 plus 25W is greater than 1950. Yes, I know on the other version there were different numbers, but the same content. So pick the right one. And I showed you the answer already. Number 2 is best answered on the board. And again, if this was the one you had, that's great. If not, just follow along because it's the same method. First thing I want to do here is figure out what x is. Pretty clearly, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. 19 minus 1 is 18. And I'll divide by -3. So x is -6. Odds are x will be a negative number because that's kind of the trick in the solution. When you plug in a negative number, are you doing it right? Well, first of all, remember PEMDAS, it's the exponent first, not this multiplication. Do not multiply 2 and -6, you don't do that. It's -6 squared. Now, if you don't use parentheses around the -6 and you're using a calculator and you're just repeating whatever it says, you might get this part of it wrong. This is 2 times -6 squared. -6 times -6 is positive 36. Positive 36. If you just use your calculator and you type in -6 squared, it's going to say -36. It's wrong because you didn't use parentheses. The calculator is correct. You were wrong for not using parentheses if that's what you did. So this is 2 times positive 36, which is 72, and that was the answer for this quiz question on version 2. Number 3 is just reading carefully and understanding what we were doing. We were talking about how to create a system of inequalities, but it was very, very procedural. We had boxes labeled whatever 2 letters you want to use. X and Y, it's fine. Small and medium, fine. Doesn't matter. The number of boxes you're allowed to have in that elevator is given to you at no more than 115. No more than 115 means less than or equal to 115. If you look at the choices here, choose the correct symbol. Make sure it's just the 2 boxes, in this case S plus M, less than or equal to 115. Well, that pretty much eliminated everything except the answer. That was it. If you also wanted to factor in the weight of the boxes, 15S, 15 pounds, plus 25M, 25 pounds per medium box, had to be no more than, less than, or equal to 6,550. For this one, again, that was choice B. Nothing else had the right symbols in the right spots. Just read carefully. Number 4, a lot of people got wrong. So let's just take a look at number 4. What is this up here? All right, number 4. We had to make a system of equations. It was $50 for an adult dinner, so 50A. It was $27 for a child dinner, 27C. It says we collected $17,160, and the adults and children together added up to a total of 380 people. If you write the system, it's easy enough. Some of you guys were trying to solve this, but not correctly. You were just adding 51A, 28C. No one cares about that. That's not how you solve a problem. If you want to do that, you have to multiply it using the eliminations method, or most of you chose instead to do the substitutions method. So I'm just going to say what does A equal? I'm subtracting C from both sides. All right. Actually, it's easier to not do that. It's easier to get C by itself. The question that I had in front of me said how many children were served. So, okay, well, how many children were served? What I really care about is what does C equal? So if I want C to be by itself, I want C to be the variable I keep in the problem, okay? Just explaining this a little bit slower. If I want C to be the variable I keep, then what I have to do is I have to find a way to replace the letter A. Okay. So that's why I'm going to subtract C from both sides. Subtracting C from both sides in this equation lets me replace the letter A with 380 minus C. Because I want to only solve for C, the question was how many children were there. So I'm going to substitute 380 minus C in place of A. That's the substitution method. So it's 50 times 380 minus C plus 27. C equals 17,160. When you distribute, you get a calculator. That's what you get. Okay. So you get 50 times 380 is 19,000 minus 50 times C, which is 50C, plus 27C equals 17,160. That's 19,000. Negative 50 plus 27 is negative 23. C equals 17,160. I'm going to subtract 19,000 from both sides. 17,160 minus 19,000 is negative 1,840. Divide by negative 23, and you get the answer. There were 80 children served. Okay, I'm going to go to the other quiz now, the most recent quiz. And I'm going to pick and choose again. Number 1, guys, the line is clearly going up from left to right, right? That makes it a positive slope. C and D said positive slope. C said the x-intercept is 1.50. Again, you're looking at what looks basically just like this. Positive slope, but if the x-intercept is 1.50, it's crossing over here, and it clearly is not. D says y-intercept is 0.3. That makes sense. That was the answer. Number 2 should have been pretty easy for you. Number 2 said that the distance to the sun can be considered inversely proportional to the square root of a planet's gravitational pull. Inversely proportional is k over, and it says the square root of the gravitational pull. That's the answer. It's done. It's D. Number 3, it said if we have, and again, you can't forget that these are the quadrant numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4, counterclockwise. It says it has points in 1 and 2, but not from 3 and 4. So we can't have any points in 3 and 4. What kind of a line exists in 1 and 2, but not 3 and 4? It's got to be horizontal, because it'll never go into 3 and 4, but it does go into 1 and 2, and that's a zero slope. Choice B. Okay, number 4 just asks you to write the equation of a line if you're given those two coordinates. That shouldn't have been hard. Also, if you find the slope, it's -5/2. Only choice C says that's the slope, so you don't even have to do anything else. You already have the answer. 5 was hard for a lot of people. I know I didn't give you a coordinate grid, but if you had sketched one, 1/2 x to -1 means it's climbing slowly and it goes through a negative y-intercept. Let's just say that looks like the line, and it also says less than or equal to, so it's got shading in these quadrants. Okay, now it depends where the other line goes to get the answer, but I mean, looks like nothing's up here already. There's no shading up here already. And the question was, where won't there be solutions? It looks pretty clear that it's this quadrant. But again, don't forget that it's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's quadrant 2. If you graph the other one, it says -2x minus 8. So very negative y-intercept goes like there. Okay, something like that. And it says greater than. So I have shading from this line, but that doesn't matter. It's where they overlap. I have shading in quadrant 3 overlapping. I have shading in quadrant 4 overlapping. I have shading in quadrant 1 overlapping. There's no overlapping shading in quadrant 2. So that was the answer for number 5. Number 6, I was surprised that we had so many wrong answers, because again, what I'm telling you is that it's just counting. Point A is at 5, -2. The midpoint is given to you as -3, 0. We want to know where coordinate B is. Please just count. That's how we solve these problems. It will just count. How do you get from 5 to -3? Well, you have to decrease by 8, because 5 minus 8 is -3. So do that again. What's -3 minus 8? -11. How do you get from -2 to 0? You add 2. So do it again. 0 plus 2 is 2. And that was the answer. All right? Again, understand, the goal of the course is not to teach you new math. The goal of the course is to help you with the strategies to succeed on the SAT, because the way in which the questions are asked on the SAT can be unique and different from your experience, but they're almost always very similar year to year to other questions asked on the SAT. So these content areas and the styles in which they're being asked should become familiar to you, so you're going to do better on the actual exam. All right, I'm going to pick and choose a little bit here. There were some problems with number 9. Number 9 gave you a grid, and it showed you a line, and it pretty clearly showed you some coordinates it went through. All you have to do is count rise over run to figure out the slope of this line. If you started off, it was clearly at -1,3 there was a point. And I'd say pretty clearly at 1,1 there was another point. So what was the rise over run? Or just do the math. The slope here, 3 minus 1 over -1 minus 1. That's 2 over, let's see, let's just make sure I get this right. -1 minus 1, yep, oh, 0. That was the problem. That was a 0, not a 1. All right, so -1 minus 0. Thought that was a problem there. -1 minus nothing is still -1. So the slope of the original line is -2. The original line, not the questions that were being asked. Just the original line had a slope of -2. The question was, what would be the slope of a line perpendicular to this line. So remember what perpendicular lines have in common. Their slopes are opposite reciprocals of one another. Opposite sign, reciprocal value. So if this slope is -2, what is the perpendicular slope? Well, opposite sign, so it's positive, and you knew it had to be positive because this is a grid-in question. And if you flip 2 upside down, you get 1/2, and that was the answer to the question. All right, I'm gonna leave it there. What I want you to do is join the Google Meet to ask me if there are any issues on the other prompts. So tomorrow, all I'm going to do is open the Google Meet and wait for you to ask questions about these 2 quizzes. I'll answer whatever you need. So we have Thursday for review that is generated by you. If no one asks questions, I'm done at that point, because what I'm going to do is post your test on Friday, and again, ask you to please submit it on Friday for full credit. You're on your own for honesty. I'm hoping that you're being honest with each other and myself. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, that's all I've got for today, and have a great day.